Hey folks, welcome to Weekend Technical Analysis Update by InTheMoneyStocks.com, your leaders in pure technical analysis, avoiding all that Wall Street hype. This Weekend Technical Analysis Update is for Monday, March 30th through Friday, April 3rd. Well, in today's weekend update, folks, I really want to focus on the charts mostly, and focus on where this market could be going because there's a couple key trend lines I've discovered over the last couple days that I've been doing this research that are going to play a key role in what this market does next week, I believe. So I'm going to try to give you guys an outline of the basics on the intraday 10-minute level, on the spiders, the SPY, and then on the 60-minute as well. First of all, I want to discuss a little bit about last week because last week was a fascinating week for many reasons. We saw a huge up day. We saw some government intervention news, some treasury news. You name it, Geithner was all around discussing various things. And you add this all up, and the market kind of continued up most of the week, but ultimately ran out of gas towards the end. And we saw an up week overall, but Friday was a down week for the markets as we saw the Dow, NASDAQ, and S&P all end lower. We also saw the dollar getting a little bit of fluctuation here. The dollar kind of bouncing all around from breaking down late last week and early this week to bouncing towards the end of this week. Really some fascinating things. So what I want to do today is really go over the charts on an intraday basis. We'll discuss Friday's action, what happened Friday, how that could set us up for next Monday and the beginning of next week. Now, what we did see Friday was a gap down. Now, what we had done was we had closed at the highs of the day on Thursday right up here. And you can see my charts here. This is my intraday 10-minute for Friday here, then Thursday, then a little bit of Wednesday as well. Now, again, as I mentioned, we closed at the high of the day. And those of you that have been watching our intraday analysis videos throughout the week know that there was a major resistance level between here and here, some major resistance. What was going on here? I'm going to flip to the 60-minute chart and show you exactly what's going on there. If you scan all the way back on your 60-minute spiders chart, you're going to come to this area, which I've highlighted here, and what you can see here is a major gap. See this gap right here? This is what we ran into late in the week, and you kind of got through it a little bit towards that 83, the low 83 range on the spiders, but that is what I call the Great Wall of China. This is like the Great Wall of China. It's just absolutely huge in the way of resistance. So much resistance right in this area. So the fact of the matter is the market's extremely extended, and it was coming up to that late last week, and it started to get into it a little bit. It filled the gap, it pierced it slightly, but ultimately it just could not get through that. And again, all the way up to this level here on the spiders is major resistance ever since this hit of the gap fill. And we did see the market react. As I switch back to the 10-minute chart, you did see the market react because you saw that gap down on Friday. You had some okay news out. It wasn't like the news was bad or anything. We got jobless claims on Thursday, GDP. You got some odds and ends on Friday. It wasn't like the news was bad. In fact, the economic news has been slightly brighter than market expectations lately, and that's helped float the markets higher with the addition of this government intervention that's been going on, these trillions and trillions of dollars being pumped in. And by the way, the rest of the world not happy. All right, you've had the European, one of the European Union presidents make a comment that the U.S. is on a track to hell or a road to hell, essentially. You've had other little smaller third world countries or those in the emerging markets taking some pot shots. You've had China attacking the dollar and what the government is doing to possibly inflate the dollar in the future, and there's going to be some continued kind of nerves from China in my opinion. China bringing up the idea of possibly switching to another currency as a global currency in the future away from the dollar. By the way, if that ever happened, it would be an insane effect on the dollar and this country if that did happen. You see a massive just dumping on the open markets of the dollars. The dollars would now become almost worthless if that were to happen. I do not think that will happen, except maybe in the long term, but we'll cover that in our nightly videos. And just a reminder, folks, we do have a premium subscriber service on our website, InTheMoneyStocks.com, for those that are really interested in getting into this educational side, into the whole idea of trendline analysis, price pattern and time, and how it works to such a degree of level and how it's such an unknown art out there. So you can join that if you want. Very inexpensive for the month. Okay, let's talk a little bit more. So we gapped lower on Friday after hitting this major. Ever since here, this is that gap fill. This is the 83.30 level. Right in here, you were hitting major resistance. Notice the double top right here. and you pulled back, and then you double topped, and that was it. As soon as you double topped, that was really your shorting opportunity. We talked about that a little bit in the intraday stock chat that we run. And then Friday, you got that gap down, and the gap down was very interesting because notice this trend line here from this pivot low. You see the pivot low before the blast off, and then the pivot low here before the blast off. Those two are telling you there's a support line or resistance line right there. And the market on Friday actually gapped below it. And once it couldn't regain it, you told you it was going to go down to the next support line, which just so happened to be this gap fill area. Notice how you had a high of the day here and a gap up, and then you filled that gap, and it went right there and then took off to the upside. That's telling you there's another major line there, so you have to draw that in on your charts and extend that all the way through. It plays a key role the rest of the day, and Thursday and Friday, in fact. Now again, so once you can't regain this trend line and you get a little bit of a bearish flag, and this is a pattern, guys. You have to know this pattern right here is a bearish flag pattern, really hugging the 50 moving average. You can see my 50 in purple. The yellow is the 20 moving average, and my 200 is red down here. So once you get that and you can't really regain and get above this trend line, that's telling you you're going to fall to this support. That's very, very good support, though. And right off of that, you start to go up. You pause on the trend line again, burst up right into a necktie here. The market tries to capture this, but starts forming some bearish pattern flag, some bearish pattern signals on these candles. What do you get? You get a little bit of topping tail action going on here. The market continues to try to push through, but just does not have the strength, and then starts to roll over, pauses on the same trend line again, falls down, bursts through but cannot get through again, and continues down to the lows of the day, this lower trend line again. And look at how key this lower trend line, that it was so easy to draw in from this to this point. You just extend it all the way through, and it plays a key role here, again here, and here. Now there's another trend line. You can see these pink trend lines I've drawn in. They're drawn in because they're that significant in my eyes. They're absolutely intense. Remember going back to the other trend line I showed you guys about 2 weeks ago that I said once that broke, we'd have a nice little downdraft, and it worked out to it perfectly. And this is it right here. I had said this trend line, which goes all the way back to the beginning of March, when this one broke, it would be a nice fall, and it absolutely was, to our target right down here, the 200 moving average, then bursting down here. That same type of trend line and how key it was for that type of fall is now emerging and needs to be watched on an intraday basis. Where does it come from, guys? And I'm going to scan all the way back to show you where these trend lines come from. Just like the one that I just showed you that worked out came from this point on the 10th of March, the same one can be used from the 10th of March and right up. And I want to show you, if you follow that trend line, you're going to see how it intersects right down here at the lows of the day, and then you continue to drag that all the way down, and it now comes into play right here again. And I really want you guys to focus on that, because you're right here at the second trend line. This one's a very, very key level. Yes, the 200 moving average is there, and this one's key. If you break this line, my guess is you go to this secondary trend line. This will be a very, very heavy support intraday, folks, and you need to watch this one. This one is so important from the lows here, going all the way back to that March 10th low that I showed you, which was the connector for the other one that we had called for that worked out so beautifully. So really watch this lower trend line. If this one breaks, I think you actually go down quite a bit more, probably down to the 77 range on the spiders, if not a little lower. Yes, you'll have support down here. You can see double bottom support, just extend it right across. All the way right in here will be very, very good support. But I think that this trend line is that big that if you do break it, you'll see some significant moves to the downside in this market. Okay? So keep in mind, I'm going to show you on the 60-minute chart how you can see it even better. All right, so here's that Great Wall of China. We're going to scan to the present, though. And again, here's that trend line I want you to watch. This one right here. And you can see this one as well, but this is the one you really want to watch for. This one right here was the one we had talked about, and we said when it breaks here, and we were following, you get a nice downdraft. And look at that sell-off you got right to the 200 and the 20 moving average right there. That was a great call. Then we burst back up, and we actually tagged it again, but now it's resistance. Remember, broken support becomes resistance on the upside, and that was a beautiful other secondary shorting opportunity, in fact. But the real key is this, guys. If you follow that trend line right here, it connects to the low here, and then the lows here. And again, as I said, this first one breaks, it's going to go right to here. If this one breaks, which is right at the 50 moving average right here, I do honestly think that you could have a shot of retracing all the way back down to this area right in this, somewhere in this range. And again, for the premium subscribers, they'll know exactly every level to watch for. But ultimately, this could be a major fall on the markets, or at least a solid pullback before we see whether or not we're going to go back to the lows, or are we going to start to bounce up. And again, as I said, that's reserved for our premium subscribers, the day-to-day. You know, this chart is the daily chart. Here's the daily chart. If you want to know what's going to go on over the next few days to the next week, that's what you have to really look into. If you want to know about the oil chart, the gold chart, the dollar chart, the Goldman chart, the JP Morgan chart, that's all stuff that we cover in the nightly videos on our research center, which also includes the daily market report, pro trader watch list, technical tactic, hidden gems, a lot of stuff there. So check it out, folks. Hopefully we have you join us soon, and have a wonderful week. Take care.